9 items, provincial list for provinces, with 54 items, and the concurrent list for both, with 36 items. Residuary powers were given to the viceroy. However, the federation never came into being as the princely states did not join it. 2. It abolished diarchy in the provinces and introduced provincial autonomy in its place. 3. The act introduced responsible governments in provinces, that is, the governor was required to act with the advice of ministers responsible to the provincial legislature. 4. Extended the principle of communal representation by providing separate electorates for depressed classes, scheduled castes, women and labor workers. 5. Question 1. It introduced bicameralism in 6 out of 11 provinces. Thus, the legislatures of Bengal, Bombay, Madras, Bihar, Assam and the United Provinces were made bicameral consisting of a legislative council, upper house, and a legislative assembly, lower house. 6. It extended franchise. About 10% of the total population got the voting right. 7. It provided for the establishment of a federal court, which was set up in 1937.8. It provided for the establishment of a Reserve Bank of India to control the currency and credit of the country. 9. It provided for the establishment of not only a Federal Public Service Commission but also a Provincial Public Service Commission and Joint Public Service Commission for 2 or more provinces. 10. Q. Which one of the following is not a feature of Government of India Act of 1935? 2000. A diarchy at the centre as well as in the provinces. B. A bicameral legislature. C. Provincial autonomy. D. An All India Federation. Answer. A. Question 2. UPSC Indian POLITYHISTORICALBACKGROND of Indian Constitution. Q. In the context of Indian history, the principle of diarchy refers to 2017. A. Division of the central legislature into 2 houses. B. Introduction of double government, i.e., central and state governments. C. Having 2 sets of rulers, one in London and another in Delhi. D. Division of the subjects delegated to the provinces into 2 categories. Answer. D. Question 3. UPSC Indian POLITYHISTORICALBACKGROND of Indian Constitution. Question 3. Diarchy, also spelled diarchy, a system of double government introduced by the Government of India Act, 1919 for the provinces of British India. 1. The Government of India Act of 1919 was thus enacted, which came into force in 1921. This act is also known as Montagu-Chelmsford Reforms. Montagu was the Secretary of State for India and Lord Chelmsford was the Viceroy of India. 2. It relaxed the central control over the provinces by demarcating and separating the central and provincial subjects. 3. It further divided the provincial subjects into 2 parts, transferred and reserved. The transferred subjects were to be administered by the governor with the aid of ministers responsible to the Legislative Council. The reserved subjects, on the other hand, were to be administered by the governor and his Executive Council without being responsible to the Legislative Council. This dual scheme of governance was known as diarchy, a term derived from the Greek word diarch which means double rule. 4. Question 3. It introduced, for the first time, bicameralism and direct elections in the country. Upper House, Council of State, and a lower house, Legislative Assembly. 5. It required that the 3 of the 6 members of the Viceroy's Executive Council, other than the Commander-in-Chief, were to be Indian. 6. It granted franchise to a limited number of people on the basis of property, tax or education. 7. It extended the principle of communal representation by providing separate electorates for Sikhs, Indian Christians, Anglo-Indians and Europeans. 8. It created a new office of the High Commissioner for India in London and transferred to him some of the functions hitherto performed by the Secretary of State for India. 9. It separated, for the first time, provincial budgets from the central budget and authorized the provincial legislatures to enact their budgets. 10. Q. In the interim government formed in 1946, the Vice President of the Executive Council was 1995. A. Jawaharlal Nehru, B. Drive. S. Radhakrishnan, C. Rajagopalachari, D. Drive. Rajendra Prasad. Answer. A. Question 4. UPSC Indian POLITYHISTORICALBACKGROND of Indian Constitution. Question 4. The interim government of India, formed on the 9th of December 1946 from the newly elected Constituent Assembly of India, had the task of assisting the transition of British India to independence. 1. It remained in place until the 15th of August 1947, the date of the independence and partition of India. 2. The Viceroy's Executive Council became the executive branch of the interim government. Originally headed by the Viceroy of India, it was transformed into a Council of Ministers, with the powers of a Prime Minister bestowed on the Vice President of the Council, a position held by the Congress leader Jawaharlal Nehru. 3. The senior Congress leader Vallabhbhai Patel held the second most powerful position in the Council, heading the Department of Home Affairs, Department of Information and Broadcasting. 4. Q. Who among the following was the chairman of the Union Constitution Committee of the Constituent Assembly? 2005. Dr. B. R. Ambedkar, B. J. B. Kripalani. C. Jawaharlal Nehru, D. L.D. Krishnaswamy Iyer. Answer, C. Question 5. UPSC Indian POLITYHISTORICALBACKGROND of Indian Constitution. Question 5. The Constituent Assembly appointed a number of committees to deal with different tasks of constitution making. Out of these, 8 were major committees and the others were minor committees. 1. Name of major committees. Chairman of the committee. Union Powers Committee Jawaharlal Nehru. Union Constitution Committee Jawaharlal Nehru. Provincial Constitution Committee Sardar Patel. Drafting Committee Dr. B. R. Ambedkar. Advisory Committee on Fundamental Rights, Minorities and Tribal and Excluded Areas, Sardar Patel. Rules of Procedure Committee Dr. Rajendra Prasad. States Committee, Committee for Negotiating with States, Jawaharlal Nehru. Steering Committee Dr. Rajendra Prasad. UPSC Civil Services Examination. Prelim Special. Previous Year Questions. Indian Polity. Salient Feature of the Constitution. Q. Which one of the following schedules of the Constitution of India contains provisions regarding Anti-Defection Act? 1998. A. Second Schedule, B. Fifth Schedule, C. Eighth Schedule, D. 10th Schedule. Answer, D. Question 1. UPSC Indian polity1 feature of the Constitution. Question 1. Originally, 1949, the Constitution contained a preamble, 395 articles, divided into 22 parts and 8 schedules. Presently, 2018, it consists of a preamble, about 465 articles, divided into 25 parts and 12 schedules. 1. 10th Schedules, Article 102, and 191(2) contains provisions as to disqualification on ground of defection. It was introduced by 52nd Amendment Act, 1985. 2. The anti-defection law sought to prevent such political defections which may be due to reward of office or other similar considerations. 1. The 10th schedule was inserted in the Constitution in 1985. It lays down the process by which legislators may be disqualified on grounds of defection by the presiding officer of a legislature based on a petition by any other member of the House. Decision of the presiding officer is subject to judicial review. 2. A legislator is deemed to have defected if he either voluntarily gives up the membership of his party or disobeys the directives of the party leadership on a vote. 3. What is the anti-defection law? Question 1. This implies that a legislator defying, abstaining or voting against the party whip on any issue can lose his membership of the House. The law applies to both Parliament and state assemblies. 4. Yes, legislators may change their party without the risk of disqualification in certain circumstances. The law allows a party to merge with or into another party provided that at least 2/3 of its legislators are in favor of the merger. In such a scenario, neither the members who decide to merge, nor the ones who stay with the original party will face disqualification. If the member has taken prior permission, or is condoned by the party within 15 days from such voting or abstention, the member shall not be disqualification. 1. Various expert committees have recommended that rather than the presiding officer, the decision to disqualify a member should be made by the president, in case of MPs, or the governor, in case of MLAs, on the advice of the election commission. This would be similar to the process followed for disqualification in case the person holds an office of profit. Are there any exceptions under the law? 2. Q. Which one of the following schedules of the Constitution of India contains provisions regarding Anti-Defection Act? 2014. A. 2nd Schedule, B. 5th Schedule, C. 8th Schedule, D. 10th Schedule. Answer, D. Question 2. UPSC Indian polity1 feature of the Constitution. Q. Which one of the following statements correctly describes the 4th Schedule of the Constitution of India? 2001 and 2004. A. It lists the distribution of powers between the Union and the states. B. It contains the languages listed in the Constitution. C. It contains the provisions relating to the administration of tribal areas. D. It allocates seats in the Council of States. Answer, D. Question 3. UPSC Indian polity1 feature of the Constitution. Question 3. 4th Schedule allocates seats in the Council of States, Rajya Sabha. 1. Article 80 of the Constitution lays down the maximum strength of Rajya Sabha as 250, out of which 12 members are nominated by the President and 238 are representatives of the states and of the 2 union territories. 2. The allocation of seats is made on the basis of the population of each state. Consequent on the reorganization of states and formation of new states, the number of elected seats in the Rajya Sabha allotted to states and union territories has changed from time to time since 1952. 3. Q. If a new state of the Indian Union is to be created, which one of the following schedules of Constitution must be amended? 2001. A. 1st. B. 2nd. C. 3rd. D. 5th. Answer, A. Question 4. UPSC Indian polity1 of Indian Constitution. Question 4. First schedule comprises states and UTs, hence it must be amended if a new state UT is created. 1. According to Article 1, the territory of India can be classified into 3 categories. 1. Territories of the states. 2. Union territories. 3. Territories that may be acquired by the government of India at any time. The names of states and union territories and their territorial extent are mentioned in the first schedule of the Constitution. At present, there are 29 states and 7 union territories. 2. The Constitution, Article 4, itself declares that laws made for admission or establishment of new states, under Article 2, and formation of new states and alteration of areas, boundaries or names of existing states, under Articles 3, are not to be considered as amendments of the Constitution under Article 368. This means that such laws can be passed by a simple majority and by the ordinary legislative process. 3. Q. Which one of the following schedules of the Indian Constitution lists the names of states and specifies their territories? 2003. A. 1st. B. 2nd. C. 3rd. D. 4th. Answer, A. Question 5. UPSC Indian polity1 of Indian Constitution. Q. Match list I with list 2 and select the correct answer. 2003. Question 6. UPSC Indian polity1 of Indian Constitution. List I. Items in the Indian Constitution. List 2. Country from which it was derived. A. Directive Principle of State Policy 1. Australia. B. Fundamental Rights 2. Canada. C. Concurrent list in Union-State Relations 3. Ireland. D. India as a union of states with greater power to the Union. 4. United Kingdom. 5. United States of America. Codes. A, B, C, D. 5412, B, 5421, C, 3421, D, 3512. Answer, D. Question 6. One of the features of India Constitution, drawn from various sources. The Constitution of India has borrowed most of its provisions from the constitutions of various other countries as well as from the Government of India Act of 1935. Dr. B. R. Ambedkar proudly acclaimed that the Constitution of India has been framed after ransacking all the known constitutions of the world. 1. The structural part of the Constitution is, to a large extent, derived from the Government of India Act of 1935. The philosophical part of the Constitution, the fundamental rights and the directive principles of state policy, derive their inspiration from the American and Irish constitutions respectively. The political part of the Constitution, the principle of cabinet government and the relations between the executive and the legislature, have been largely drawn from the British Constitution. 2. Question 6. Sources features borrowed Government of India Act. of 1935. Federal scheme, Office of Governor, Judiciary, Public Service Commissions, Emergency Provisions and Administrative Details. British Constitution, Parliamentary Government, Rule of Law, Legislative Procedure, Single Citizenship, Cabinet System, Prerogative Writs, Parliamentary Privileges and Bicameralism. U.S. Constitution, Fundamental Rights, Independence of Judiciary, Judicial Review, Impeachment of the President, Removal of Supreme Court and High Court judges and post of Vice President. Irish Constitution, Directive Principles of State Policy, Nomination of Members to Rajya Sabha and Method of Election of President. Canadian Constitution, Federation with a strong centre, vesting of residuary powers in the centre, appointment of state governors by the centre, and advisory jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. Australian Constitution, Concurrent List, Freedom of Trade, Commerce and Intercourse, and joint sitting of the two houses of Parliament. Soviet Constitution, USSR, now Russia, fundamental duties and the ideal of justice, social, economic and political in the preamble. Q. Consider the following statements. 1. The Constitution of India has 40 parts. 2. There are 390 articles in the Constitution of India in all. 3. 9th, 10th, 11th and 12th schedules were added to the Constitution of India by Constitution Amendment Acts. Which of the statements given above are correct? 2005. A. 1 and 2, B. Only 2, C. Only 3. D. 1, 2 and 3 answer, C. Question 7. UPSC Indian POLITYHISTORICALBACKGROND of Indian Constitution. Question 7. Lengthiest written constitution. The Constitution of India is the lengthiest of all the written constitutions of the world. Originally, 1949, the Constitution contained a preamble, 395 articles, divided into 22 parts and 8 schedules. Presently, 2018, it consists of a preamble, about 465 articles, divided into 25 parts and 12 schedules. 4 factors have contributed to the elephantine size of our Constitution. Geographical factors, that is, the vastness of the country and its diversity. Historical factors, e.g., the influence of the Government of India Act of 1935, which was bulky. Single constitution for both the centre and the states except Jammu and Kashmir. Dominance of legal luminaries in the Constituent Assembly. 1. Ninth Schedule was added by the First Amendment, 1951, to protect the laws included in it from judicial scrutiny on the ground of violation of fundamental rights. However, in 2007, the Supreme Court ruled that the laws included in the schedule after April 24, 1973, are now open to judicial review. 2. 11th and 12th schedules were added by the 73rd and 74th Amendment respectively in 1992. 11th schedule specifies the powers, authority and responsibilities of panchayats and it has 29 matters. 12th schedule specifies the powers, authority and responsibilities of municipalities and it has 18 matters. 3. Q. Under which one of the following Constitution Amendment Act, 4 language were added to the languages under the 8th schedule of the Constitution of India, thereby raising their number to 22. 2008. A Constitution 90th Amendment Act. B. Constitution 91st Amendment Act. C. Constitution 92nd Amendment Act. D. Constitution 93rd Amendment Act. Answer C. Question 8. UPSC Indian POLITYHISTORICALBACKGROND of Indian Constitution. Question 8. 8th schedule contains languages recognized by the Constitution. Originally, it had 14 languages but presently there are 22 languages. They are Assamese, Bengali, Bodo, Dogri, Dongri, Gujarati, Hindi, Kannada, Kashmiri, Konkani, Maithili, Malayalam, Manipuri, Marathi, Nepali, Oriya, Punjabi, Sanskrit, Santhali, Sindhi, Tamil, Telugu and Urdu. 1. Sindhi was added by the 21st Amendment Act of 1967, Konkani, Manipuri and Nepali were added by the 71st Amendment Act of 1992, and Bodo, Dongri, Maithili and Santhali were added by the 92nd Amendment Act of 2003. 2. In 2004, the Government of India declared that languages that met certain requirements could be accorded the status of a classical language in India. The following criteria were laid down to determine the eligibility of languages to be considered for classification as a classical language. High antiquity of its early texts, recorded history over a period of 1500-2000 years. A body of ancient literature texts, which is considered a valuable heritage by generations of speakers. The literary tradition be original and not borrowed from another speech community. The classical language and literature being distinct from modern, there may also be a discontinuity between the classical language and its later forms or its offshoots. 3. Question 8. Tamil was the first classical language of India. The government declared Tamil in 2004, Sanskrit in 2005. These two languages are undoubtedly parental sources for many languages belonging to the Indo-European family and the Dravidian family of linguistic groups. Later the government declared Kannada and Telugu in 2008 as classical languages of India. In 2013, Malayalam was also given status of classical language. In 2014, Odia was also given the status of classical language. With this, the following 6 languages are included in the list of classical languages. Tamil since 2004. Sanskrit since 2005. Telugu since 2008. Kannada since 2008. Malayalam since 2013, Odia since 2014. 4. UPSC Civil Services Examination. Prelim Special. Previous year questions Indian polity. Preamble of the Constitution. Q. In the following quotation. We the people of India having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign socialist secular democratic republic and to secure to all its citizens, justice, social, economic and political, liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith and worship, equality of status and of opportunity, and to promote among them all, fraternity assuring the dignity of the individual and the unity and integrity of the nation, in our Constituent Assembly this X, do hereby adopt, enact and give to ourselves this Constitution. X stands for 1997. A 26th day of January, 1950, B, 26th day of November, 1949, C, 26th day of January, 1949, D, none of the above. Answer, B. Question 1. UPSC Indian POLITYPREAMBLE of the Constitution. Question 1. Source of authority of the Constitution. The preamble states that the Constitution derives its authority from the people of India. 1. Nature of Indian state. It declares India to be of sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic and republican polity. 2. Objectives of the Constitution. It specifies justice, liberty, equality and fraternity as the objectives. 3. Date of adoption of the Constitution. It stipulates November 26, 1949 as the date. 4. The preamble reveals 4 ingredients or components. Question 1. Sovereign. The word sovereign implies that India is neither a dependency nor a dominion of any other nation, but an independent state. Though in 1949, India declared the continuation of her full membership of the Commonwealth of Nations and accepted the British Crown as the head of the Commonwealth, this extra-constitutional declaration does not affect India's sovereignty in any manner. Being a sovereign state, India can either acquire foreign territory or cede a part of its territory in favor of a foreign state. 5. Socialist. The term socialist was added by the 42nd Amendment in 1976, but the Constitution had a socialist content in the form of certain directive principles of state policy. Indian brand of socialism is a democratic socialism, and not a communistic socialism, also known as state socialism. Democratic socialism holds faith in a mixed economy where both public and private sectors coexist side by side. As the Supreme Court says, democratic socialism aims to end poverty, ignorance, disease and inequality of opportunity. Indian socialism is a blend of Marxism and Gandhism, leaning heavily towards Gandhian socialism. 6. Question 1. Secular. The term secular, too, was added by the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act of 1976. However, as the Supreme Court said in 1974, although the words secular state were not expressly mentioned in the Constitution, there can be no doubt the Constitution makers wanted to establish such a state, and accordingly Articles 25 to 28, guaranteeing the fundamental right to freedom of religion, have been included in the Constitution. The Indian Constitution embodies the positive concept of secularism, i.e., all religions in our country, irrespective of their strength, have the same status and support from the state. 7. Q. The mind of the makers of the Constitution of India is reflected in which of the following? 2017. A. The preamble. B. The fundamental rights. C. The directive principles of state policy. D. The fundamental duties. Answer. A. Question 2. UPSC Indian polity preamble of the Constitution. Question 2. The preamble embodies the basic philosophy and fundamental values, political, moral and religious, on which the Constitution is based. It contains the grand and noble vision of the Constituent Assembly, and reflects the dreams and aspirations of the founding fathers of the Constitution. 1. In the words of Sir Laddi Krishnaswamy Iyer, a member of the Constituent Assembly who played a significant role in making the Constitution, the preamble to our Constitution expresses what we had thought it dreamt so long. 2. According to K.M. Munshi, a member of the drafting committee of the Constituent Assembly, the preamble is the horoscope of our sovereign democratic republic. 3. M. Hidayatullah, a former Chief Justice of India, observed, preamble resembles the Declaration of Independence of the United States of America, but is more than a declaration. It is the soul of our Constitution, which lays down the pattern of our political society. It contains a solemn resolve, which nothing but a revolution can alter. 4. Q. Which one of the following objectives is not embodied in the preamble to the Constitution of India? 2017. A. Liberty of thought. B. Economic liberty. C. Liberty of expression. D. Liberty of belief. Answer. B. Question 3. UPSC Indian polity preamble of the Constitution. Question 3. We the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign socialist secular democratic republic and to secure to all its citizens justice, social, economic and political liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith and worship, equality of status and of opportunity, and to promote among them all fraternity, assuring the dignity of the individual and the unity and integrity of the nation. In our Constituent Assembly this 26th day of November, 1949, do hereby adopt, enact and give to ourselves this Constitution. Question 3. The term liberty means the absence of restraints on the activities of individuals, and at the same time, providing opportunities for the development of individual personalities. The preamble secures to all citizens of India liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith and worship, through their fundamental rights, enforceable in court of law in case of violation. 1. Liberty as elaborated in the preamble is very essential for the successful functioning of the Indian democratic system. However, liberty does not mean license to do what one likes, and has to be enjoyed within the limitations mentioned in the Constitution itself. In brief, the liberty conceived by the preamble of fundamental rights is not absolute but qualified. 2. The ideals of liberty, equality and fraternity in our preamble have been taken from the French Revolution, 1789-1799. 3. Q. Which one of the following reflects the most appropriate relationship between law and liberty? 2018. A. If there are more laws, there is less liberty. B. If there are no laws, there is no liberty. C. If there is liberty, laws have to be made by the people. D. If laws are changed too often, liberty is in danger. Answer. B. Question 4. UPSC Indian polity historicalbackgrond of Indian Constitution. Equals. Preamble is part of the Constitution. In the Kesavananda Bharati case, 1973, the Supreme Court held that preamble is a part of the Constitution. It observed that the preamble is of extreme importance and the Constitution should be read and interpreted in the light of the grand and noble vision expressed in the preamble. In the LIC of India case, 1995, also, the Supreme Court again held that the preamble is an integral part of the Constitution. 1. Two things should be noted. 1. The preamble is neither a source of power to legislature nor a prohibition upon the powers of legislature. 2. It is non-justiciable, that is, its provisions are not enforceable in courts of law. 2. Amendability of the preamble. The question as to whether the preamble can be amended under Article 368 of the Constitution arose for the first time in the historic case of Kesavananda Bharati, 1973. It was urged that the preamble cannot be amended as it is not a part of the Constitution. The court held that the preamble can be amended, subject to the condition that no amendment is done to the basic features. In other words, the court held that the basic elements or the fundamental features of the Constitution as contained in the preamble cannot be altered by an amendment under Article 368. 1. UPSC Civil Services Examination. Prelim Special. Previous year questions Indian polity. Fundamental Rights Part 1. Q. Prohibition of discrimination on groups of religion etc. Article 15 of the Constitution of India is a fundamental right classifiable under 1995. The right to freedom of religion. B. The right against exploitation. C. The cultural and educational rights. D. The right to equality. Answer. D. Question 1. UPSC INDIAN Polity Fundamental Rights. Question 1. The fundamental rights are mentioned in Part 3 of the Constitution from Articles 12 to 35. Part 3 of the Constitution is rightly described as the Magna Carta of India. 1. The fundamental rights are guaranteed by the Constitution to all persons without any discrimination. They uphold the equality of all individuals, the dignity of the individual, the larger public interest and unity of the nation. 2. The fundamental rights are meant for promoting the ideal of political democracy. They prevent the establishment of an authoritarian and despotic rule in the country, and protect the liberties and freedoms of the people against the invasion by the state. 3. The Constitution provided for 6 fundamental rights. Right to equality, Article 14 to 18. Right to freedom, Article 19 to 22. Right against exploitation, Article 23 to 24. Right to freedom of religion, Article 25 to 28. Cultural and educational rights, Article 29 to 30. Right to constitutional remedies, Article 32. 4. Question 1. Equality before law and equal protection of laws, Article 14. Prohibition of discrimination on grounds of religion, race, caste, sex or place of birth, Article 15. Equality of opportunity in matters of public employment, Article 16. Abolition of untouchability and prohibition of its practice, Article 17. Abolition of titles except military and academic, Article 18. 5. Article 15 provides that the state shall not discriminate against any citizen on grounds only of religion, race, caste, sex or place of birth. The second provision of Article 15 says that no citizen shall be subjected to any disability, liability, restriction or condition on grounds only of religion, race, caste, sex or place of birth with regard to access to shops, public restaurants, hotels and places of public entertainment, or the use of wells, tanks, bathing huts, road and places of public resort maintained wholly or partly by state funds or dedicated to the use of general public. 6. Q. In the Indian Constitution, the right to equality is granted by 5 articles. They are 2002. Article 16 to Article 20, B. Article 15 to Article 19, C. Article 14 to Article 18, D. Article 13 to Article 17. Answer, C. Question 2. UPSC INDIAN Polity Fundamental Rights. Q. Match list I. Articles of the Constitution of India, with list 2, provision, and select the correct answer using the codes given below the list, 2004. Codes. A, B, C, D. 2413, B. 3142, C. 2143, D. 3412. Answer, C. Question 3. List I. Article of Constitution, list 2, provision. A. Article 14.1. The state shall not discriminate against any citizen on ground only on religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth or any of term. B. Article 15.2. The state shall not deny to any person equality before the law or the equal protection of laws within the territory of India. See Article 16.3. Untouchability is abolished and its practice in any or is forbidden. D. Article 17.4. There shall be equality of opportunity for all citizens in matters relating to employment or appointment to any office under the state. Question 3. Equality before law and equal protection of laws. Article 14 says that the state shall not deny to any person equality before the law or the equal protection of the laws within the territory of India. The word person includes legal persons, viz., statutory corporations, companies, registered societies or any other type of legal person. The concept of equality before law is of British origin while the concept of equal protection of laws has been taken from the American Constitution. 1. Article 15 provides that the state shall not discriminate against any citizen on grounds only of religion, race, caste, sex or place of birth. The second provision of Article 15 says that no citizen shall be subjected to any disability, liability, restriction or condition on grounds only of religion, race, caste, sex or place of birth with regard to access to shops, public restaurants, hotels and places of public entertainment, or the use of wells, tanks, bathing huts, road and places of public resort maintained wholly or partly by state funds or dedicated to the use of general public. 2. Equality of opportunity in public employment. Article 16 provides for equality of opportunity for all citizens in matters of employment or appointment to any office under the state. No citizen can be discriminated against or be ineligible for any employment or office under the state on grounds of only religion, race, caste, sex, descent, place of birth or residence. 3. Question 3. There are 3 exceptions to this general rule of equality of opportunity in public employment. Parliament can prescribe residence as a condition for certain employment or appointment in a state or union territory or local authority or other authority. As the Public Employment Requirement as to Residence Act of 1957 expired in 1974, there is no such provision for any state except Andhra Pradesh. The state can provide for reservation of appointments or posts in favor of any backward class that is not adequately represented in the state services. A law can provide that the incumbent of an office related to religious or denominational institution or a member of its governing body should belong to the particular religion or denomination. 4. Abolition of untouchability. Article 17 abolishes untouchability and forbids its practice in any form. The enforcement of any disability arising out of untouchability shall be an offence punishable in accordance with law. In 1976, the Untouchability Offences Act, 1955 has been comprehensively amended and renamed as the Protection of Civil Rights Act, 1955 to enlarge the scope and make penal provisions more stringent. 5. Q. A British citizen staying in India cannot claim right to 1999. A. Freedom of trade and profession. B. Equality before the law. C. Protection of life and personal liberty. D. Freedom of religion. Answer. A. Question 4. UPSC Indian POLITY of the Constitution. Question 4. Some of the fundamental rights are available only to the citizens while others are available to all persons whether citizens, foreigners or legal persons like corporations or companies. 1. Fundamental rights available only to citizens and not to foreigners. Prohibition of discrimination on grounds of religion, race, caste, sex or place of birth, Article 15. Equality of opportunity in matters of public employment, Article 16. Protection of 6 rights regarding freedom of, Article 19. Speech and expression. Assembly. Association. Movement. Residence. Profession. Protection of language, script and culture of minorities, Article 29. Right of minorities to establish and administer educational institutions, Article 30. 2. Rest of the fundamental rights under Articles 14, 20, 21, 21A, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27 and 28 are available to both citizens and foreigners except enemy aliens. 3. Q. Which of the following are envisaged by the right against exploitation in the Constitution of India? 2017. 1. Prohibition of traffic in human beings and forced labor. 2. Abolition of untouchability. 3. Protection of the interests of minorities. 4. Prohibition of employment of children in factories and mines. Select the correct answer using the code given below. 1, 2 and 4 only, B, 2, 3 and 4 only, C, 1 and 4 only, D, 1, 2, 3 and 4 answer, C. Question 5. UPSC Indian polity PREMBLE of the Constitution. Question 5. Article 23 prohibits traffic in human beings, beggar, forced labor, and other similar forms of forced labor. Any contravention of this provision shall be an offence punishable in accordance with law. This right is available to both citizens and non-citizens. It protects the individual not only against the state but also against private persons. 1. Article 23 also provides for an exception to this provision. It permits the state to impose compulsory service for public purposes, as for example, military service or social service, for which it is not bound to pay. However, in imposing such service, the state is not permitted to make any discrimination on grounds only of religion, race, caste or class. 2. Article 24 prohibits the employment of children below the age of 14 years in any factory, mine or other hazardous activities like construction work or railway. But it does not prohibit their employment in any harmless or innocent work. The Child Labour Prohibition and Regulation Act, 1986, is the most important law in this direction. The Child Labour Prohibition and Regulation Amendment Act, 2016, amended the Child Labour Prohibition and Regulation Act, 1986. It has renamed the principal act as the Child and Adolescent Labour Prohibition and Regulation Act, 1986. The Amendment Act prohibits the employment of children below 14 years in all occupations and processes. Earlier this prohibition was applicable to 18 occupations and 65 processes. 3. Thank you and happy learning. UPSC Civil Services Examination. Prelim Special. Previous year questions. Indian polity. Fundamental Rights Part 2. Q. Which article of the Constitution of India says, no child below the age of 14 years shall be employed to work in any factory or mine or engaged in any other hazardous employment? 2004. Article 24, B, Article 45, C, Article 330, D, Article 368 answer, A. Question 6. UPSC INDIAN Polity Fundamental Rights. Question 6. Article 24 prohibits the employment of children below the age of 14 years in any factory, mine or other hazardous activities like construction work or railway. But it does not prohibit their employment in any harmless or innocent work. The Child Labour Prohibition and Regulation Act, 1986, is the most important law in this direction. The Child Labour Prohibition and Regulation Amendment Act, 2016, amended the Child Labour Prohibition and Regulation Act, 1986. It has renamed the principal act as the Child and Adolescent Labour Prohibition and Regulation Act, 1986. The Amendment Act prohibits the employment of children below 14 years in all occupations and processes. Earlier this prohibition was applicable to 18 occupations and 65 processes. 1. Q. Right to privacy is protected as an intrinsic part of right to life and personal liberty. Which of the following in the Constitution of India correctly and appropriately imply the above statement? 2018. Article 14 and the provisions under the 42nd Amendment to the Constitution, B. Article 17 and the directive principles of state policy in Part 4, C. Article 21 and the freedoms guaranteed in Part 3. D. Article 24 and the provisions under the 44th Amendment to the Constitution answer, C. Question 7. UPSC INDIAN Polity Fundamental Rights. Question 7. Protection of life and personal liberty. Article 21 declares that no person shall be deprived of his life or personal liberty except according to procedure established by law. This right is available to both citizens and non-citizens. The protection under Article 21 should be available not only against arbitrary executive action but also against arbitrary legislative action. The court held that the right to life, as embodied in Article 21, is not merely confined to animal existence or survival but it includes within its ambit the right to live with human dignity and all those aspects of life which go to make a man's life meaningful, complete and worth living. 1. It also ruled that the expression, personal liberty, in Article 21 is of the widest amplitude and it covers a variety of rights that go to constitute the personal liberties of a man. Right to live with human dignity, right to livelihood, right to privacy, right to shelter, right to health, right to free legal aid, right to travel abroad, right against bonded labor, right against custodial harassment, right to emergency medical aid. 2. Q. Which one of the following statements is correct? 2017. Rights are claims of the state against the citizens. B. Rights are privileges which are incorporated in the constitution of a state. C. Rights are claims of the citizens against the state. D. Rights are privileges of a few citizens against the many. Answer, C. Question 8. UPSC Indian polity PREMBLE of the Constitution. Question 8. The fundamental rights are guaranteed by the Constitution to all persons without any discrimination. They uphold the equality of all individuals, the dignity of the individual, the larger public interest and unity of the nation. 1. The fundamental rights are meant for promoting the ideal of political democracy. They prevent the establishment of an authoritarian and despotic rule in the country, and protect the liberties and freedoms of the people against the invasion by the state. 2. They operate as limitations on the tyranny of the executive and arbitrary laws of the legislature. In short, they aim at establishing a government of laws and not of men. The fundamental rights are named so because they are guaranteed and protected by the Constitution, which is the fundamental law of the land. 3. Which of the following are regarded as the main features of the rule of law? 2018. 1. Limitation of powers. 2. Equality before law. 3. People's responsibility to the government for liberty and civil rights. Select the correct answer using the code given below. 1 and 3 only, B, 2 and 4 only, C, 1, 2 and 4 only, D, 1, 2, 3 and 4 answer, C. Question 9. UPSC Indian polity PREMBLE of the Constitution. Question 9. The concept of equality before law is an element of the concept of rule of law propounded by A.V. Dicey, the British jurist. His concept has the following three elements or aspects. Absence of arbitrary power, that is, no man can be punished except for a breach of law. Equality before the law, that is, equal subjection of all citizens, rich or poor, high or low, official or non-official, to the ordinary law of the land administered by the ordinary law courts. The primacy of the rights of the individual, that is, the Constitution is the result of the rights of the individual is defined and enforced by the courts of law rather than the Constitution being the source of the individual rights. 1. The first and second elements are applicable to the Indian system and not the third one. In the Indian system, the Constitution is the source of the individual rights. 2. No member of Parliament shall be liable to any proceedings in any court in respect of anything said or any vote given by him in Parliament or any committee thereof. Article 105. No member of the legislature of a state shall be liable to any proceedings in any court in respect of anything said or any vote given by him in the legislature or any committee thereof. Article 194. The foreign sovereigns, rulers, ambassadors and diplomats enjoy immunity from criminal and civil proceedings. The UNO and its agencies enjoy the diplomatic immunity. 3. Q. One of the implications of equality in society is the absence of 2017. Privileges, B. Restraints, C. Competition, D. Ideology. Answer, A. Question 10. UPSC Indian polity PREMBLE of the Constitution. Q. The Constitution of India recognizes 1999. Only religious minorities, B. Only linguistic minorities. C. Religious and linguistic minorities, D. Religious, linguistic and ethnic minorities. Answer, C. Question 11. UPSC Indian polity PREMBLE of the Constitution. Question 11. Article 30 grants the following rights to minorities, whether religious or linguistic. All minorities shall have the right to establish and administer educational institutions of their choice. The compensation amount fixed by the state for the compulsory acquisition of any property of the minority educational institution shall not restrict or abrogate the right guaranteed to them. This provision was added by the 44th Amendment Act of 1978 to protect the right of minorities in this regard. The Act deleted the right to property as a fundamental right, Article 31. In granting aid, the state shall not discriminate against any educational institution managed by a minority. Thus, the protection under Article 30 is confined only to minorities, religious or linguistic, and does not extend to any section of citizens. However, the term minority has not been defined anywhere in the Constitution. 1. Minority educational institutions are of three types. Institutions that seek recognition as well as aid from the state. Institutions that seek only recognition from the state and not aid, and institutions that neither seek recognition nor aid from the state. The institutions of first and second type are subject to the regulatory power of the state with regard to syllabus prescription, academic standards, discipline, sanitation, employment of teaching staff and so on. The institutions of third type are free to administer their affairs but subject to operation of general laws like contract law, labor law, industrial law, tax law, economic regulations, and so on. 2. Q. Assertion A. The word minority is not defined in the Constitution of India. Reason R. The Minorities Commission is not a constitutional body. In context of the above two statements, which one of the following is correct? 1996. Both A and R are true and R is the correct explanation of A. B. Both A and R are true and R is not the correct explanation of A. C. A is true but R is false. D. A is false but R is true. Answer, B. Question 12. UPSC Indian polity PREMBLE of the Constitution. Q. The 9th schedule to the Indian Constitution was added by 2003. First Amendment, B. 8th Amendment, C. 9th Amendment. D. 42nd Amendment. Answer, A. Question 13. UPSC Indian polity PREMBLE of the Constitution. Question 13. The 9th schedule was added to the Constitution by the First Amendment in 1951 along with Article 31B with a view to provide a protective umbrella to land reforms laws to save them from being challenged in courts on the ground of violation of fundamental rights. The SC upheld the validity of Article 31B and Parliament's power to place a particular law in the 9th schedule. 1. The Supreme Court has said that laws placed in the 9th schedule are open to judicial scrutiny and that such laws do not enjoy a blanket protection. Laws placed in the 9th schedule after the Keshwanand Bharati judgment on April 24, 1973, when it propounded the basic structure, doctrine, were open to challenge. 2. Consider the following statements, 2018. 1. The Parliament of India can place a particular law in the 9th schedule of the Constitution of India. 2. The validity of a law placed in the 9th schedule cannot be examined by any court and no judgment can be made on it. Which of the statements given above are correct? 1 only. B. 2 only. C. Both 1 and 2. D. Neither 1 nor 2. Answer, A. Question 14. UPSC Indian polity PREMBLE of the Constitution. Question 15. Q. Match list I. Articles of the Constitution of India with list 2 provision and select the correct answer using the codes given below the list 2002. List I. Article of Constitution list 2 provision. A. Article 16(2)(1). No person shall be deprived of his property save by the authority of law. B. Article 29(2)(2). No person can be discriminated against in the matter of public appointment on the ground of race, religion or caste. See Article 31(3). All minorities whether based on religion or language shall have the right to establish and administer educational institutions of their choice. D. Article 31(1)(4). No citizen shall be denied admission into any educational institution maintained by the state or receiving state aid on grounds of religion, race, caste, language or any of them. Codes. A, B, C, D. 2431, B, 3124, C, 2134, D, 3421. Answer, A. Question 15. Article 29 provides that any section of the citizens residing in any part of India having a distinct language, script or culture of its own, shall have the right to conserve the same. Further, no citizen shall be denied admission into any educational institution maintained by the state or receiving aid out of state funds on grounds only of religion, race, caste or language. 1. Thank you and happy learning. UPSC Civil Services Examination. Prelim Special. Previous year questions. Indian polity. Directive Principles of State Policy Part 1. Q. The purpose of the inclusion of Directive Principle of State Policy in the Indian Constitution is to establish 2002. A political democracy. B. Social democracy. C. Gandhian democracy. D. Social and economic democracy. Answer, D. Question 1. UPSC Indian polity DIRECTIV Principles of State Policy. Question 1. The phrase, Directive Principles of State Policy, denotes the ideals that the state should keep in mind while formulating policies and enacting laws. These are the constitutional instructions or recommendations to the state in legislative, executive and administrative matters. 2. The Directive Principles of State Policy are enumerated in Part 4 of the Constitution from Articles 36 to 51. The framers of the Constitution borrowed this idea from the Irish Constitution of 1937, which had copied it from the Spanish Constitution. Dr. B. R. Ambedkar described these principles as novel features of the Indian Constitution. The Directive Principles along with the fundamental rights contain the philosophy of the Constitution and is the soul of the Constitution. 1. The Directive Principles constitute a very comprehensive economic, social and political program for a modern democratic state. They aim at realizing the high ideals of justice, liberty, equality and fraternity as outlined in the preamble to the Constitution. They embody the concept of a welfare state and not that of a police state which existed during the colonial era. In brief, they seek to establish economic and social democracy in the country. 3. Q. Economic justice, as one of the objectives of the Indian Constitution has been provided in 2013. The preamble and the fundamental rights. B. The preamble and the directive principles of state policy. C. The fundamental rights and the directive principles of state policy. D. None of the above. Answer, B. Question 2. UPSC Indian polity DIRECTIV Principles of State Policy. Q. According to the Constitution of India, which of the following are fundamental for the governance of the country? 2013. Fundamental rights. B. Fundamental duties. C. Directive principles of state policy. D. Fundamental rights and fundamental duties. Answer, C. Question 3. UPSC Indian polity DIRECTIV Principles of State Policy. Q. The ideal of welfare state in the Indian Constitution is enshrined in its 2015. Preamble. B. Directive principles of state policy. C. Fundamental rights. D. 7th schedule. Answer, B. Question 4. UPSC Indian polity DIRECTIV Principles of State Policy. Q. Consider the following statements. 1. There is no provision in the Constitution of India to encourage equal pay for equal work for both men and women. 2. The Constitution of India does not define backward classes. Which of the statements given above are correct? 2006. Only 1. B. Only 2. C. Both 1 and 2. D. Neither 1 nor 2. Answer, B. Question 5. UPSC Indian polity DIRECTIV Principles of State Policy. Question 5. The Constitution does not contain any classification of directive principles. However, on the basis of their content and direction, they can be classified into 3 broad categories, viz. socialistic, Gandhian and liberal intellectual. Socialistic principles reflect the ideology of socialism. They lay down the framework of a democratic socialist state, aim at providing social and economic justice, and set the path towards welfare state. 1. Socialist principles direct states to promote the welfare of the people by securing a social order permeated by justice, social, economic and political, and to minimize inequalities in income, status, facilities and opportunities. Article 38. To secure the right to adequate means of livelihood for all citizens. The equitable distribution of material resources of the community for the common good. Prevention of concentration of wealth and means of production. Equal pay for equal work for men and women. Preservation of the health and strength of workers and children against forcible abuse and opportunities for healthy development of children. Article 39. To promote equal justice and to provide free legal aid to the poor. Article 39A. To secure the right to work, to education and to public assistance in cases of unemployment, old age, sickness and disablement. Article 41. To make provision for just and humane conditions for work and maternity relief. Article 42. 2. Q. With reference to the Constitution of India, consider the following. 1. Fundamental rights. 2. Fundamental duties. 3. Directive principles of state policy. Which of the above provisions of the Constitution of India are fulfilled by the National Social Assistance Program launched by the Government of India? 2010. 1 only. B. 3 only. C. 1 and 3 only. D. 1, 2 and 3. Answer, C. Question 6. UPSC Indian polity DIRECTIV Principles of State Policy. Q. Which of the following are included in the Directive Principles of State Policy? 1. Prohibition of traffic in human beings and forced labor. 2. Prohibition of consumption except for medicinal purposes of intoxicating drinks and of other drugs which are injurious to health. Select the correct answer using the code given below. 2008. Only 1. B. Only 2. C. Both 1 and 2. D. Neither 1 nor 2. Answer, B. Question 7. UPSC Indian polity DIRECTIV Principles of State Policy. Question 7. Gandhian principles are based on Gandhian ideology. They represent the program of reconstruction enunciated by Gandhi during the national movement. In order to fulfill the dreams of Gandhi, some of his ideas were included as directive principles. 1. Gandhian principles require the state to organize village panchayats and endow them with necessary powers and authority to enable them to function as units of self-government. Article 40. To promote cottage industries on an individual or cooperation basis in rural areas. Article 43. To promote voluntary formation, autonomous functioning, democratic control and professional management of cooperative societies. Article 43b. To promote the educational and economic interests of SCs, STs, and other weaker sections of the society and to protect them from social injustice and exploitation. Article 46. To prohibit the consumption of intoxicating drinks and drugs which are injurious to health. Article 47. To prohibit the slaughter of cows, calves and other milch and draft cattle and to improve their breeds. Article 48. 2. Q. Consider the following provisions under the directive principles of state policy as enshrined in the Constitution of India. 1. Securing for citizens of India a uniform civil code. 2. Organizing village panchayats. 3. Promoting cottage industries in rural areas. 4. Securing for all the workers reasonable leisure and cultural opportunities. Which of the above are the Gandhian principles that are reflected in the directive principles of state policy? 2012. 1, 2 and 4 only, B, 2 and 3 only, C, 1, 3 and 4 only, D, 1, 2, 3 and 4 answer, B. Question 8. UPSC Indian POLITYDIRECTIV Principles of State Policy. Thank you and happy learning. UPSC Civil Services Examination. Prelim Special. Previous year questions. Indian Polity. Directive Principles of State Policy, Part 2. Q. Which of the following articles of the Directive Principles of State Policy deals with the promotion of international peace and security? 2002. Article 51, B, Article 48A, C, Article 43A, D, Article 41 answer, A. Question 9. UPSC Indian POLITYDIRECTIV Principles of State Policy. Question 9. The Constitution does not contain any classification of directive principles. However, on the basis of their content and direction, they can be classified into three broad categories, viz., socialistic, Gandhian and liberal intellectual. 1. The liberal intellectual principles represent the ideology of liberalism. They direct the state to secure for all citizens a uniform civil code throughout the country. Article 44. To provide early childhood care and education for all children until they complete the age of 6 years. Article 45. To organize agriculture and animal husbandry on modern and scientific lines. Article 48. To protect and improve the environment and to safeguard forests and wildlife. Article 48A. To protect monuments, places and objects of artistic or historic interest which are declared to be of national importance. Article 49. To separate the judiciary from the executive in the public services of the state. Article 50. To promote international peace and security and maintain just and honorable relations between nations, to foster respect for international law and treaty obligations, and to encourage settlement of international disputes by arbitration. Article 51. 2. Q. In the Constitution of India, promotion of international peace and security is included in the 2014. A preamble to the Constitution. B. Directive Principles of State Policy. C. Fundamental Duties. D. 9th Schedule. Answer, B. Question 10. UPSC Indian POLITYDIRECTIV Principles of State Policy. Q. The instrument of instructions contained in the Government of India Act 1935 have been incorporated in the Constitution of India in the year 1950 as 2010. Fundamental rights. B. Directive Principles of State Policy. C. Extent of executive power of state. D. Conduct of business of the Government of India. Answer, B. Question 11. UPSC Indian POLITYDIRECTIV Principles of State Policy. Question 11. The directive principles resemble the instrument of instructions enumerated in the Government of India Act of 1935. In the words of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, the directive principles are like the instrument of instructions, which were issued to the Governor-General and to the governors of the colonies of India by the British government under the Government of India Act of 1935. What is called directive principles is merely another name for the instrument of instructions. The only difference is that they are instructions to the legislature and the executive. 1. Q. Which principle among the following was added to the directive principles of state policy by the 42nd Amendment to the Constitution? 2017. Equal pay for equal work for both men and women. B. Participation of workers in the management of industries. C. Right to work, education and public assistance. D. Securing living wage and human conditions of work to workers. Answer, B. Question 12. UPSC Indian POLITYDIRECTIV Principles of State Policy. Question 12. The 42nd Amendment Act of 1976 added 4 new directive principles to the original list. They require the state to secure opportunities for healthy development of children. Article 39. To promote equal justice and to provide free legal aid to the poor. Article 39A. To take steps to secure the participation of workers in the management of industries. Article 43A. To protect and improve the environment and to safeguard forests and wildlife. Article 48A. 1. The 44th Amendment Act of 1978 added one more directive principle, which requires the state to minimize inequalities in income, status, facilities and opportunities. Article 38. The 86th Amendment Act of 2002 changed the subject matter of Article 45 and made elementary education a fundamental right. Under Article 21A, the amended directive requires the state to provide early childhood care and education for all children until they complete the age of 6 years. The 97th Amendment Act of 2011 added a new directive principle relating to cooperative societies. It requires the state to promote voluntary formation, autonomous functioning, democratic control and professional management of cooperative societies. Article 43b. 1. Q. Consider the following statements with reference to the Constitution of India. The directive principles of state policy constitute limitations upon 1. Legislative function. 2. Executive function. Which of the above statements are correct? 2017. 1 only. B. 2 only. C. Both 1 and 2. D. Neither 1 nor 2. Answer, D. Question 13. UPSC Indian POLITYDIRECTIV Principles of State Policy. Question 13. The phrase, directive principles of state policy, denotes the ideals that the state should keep in mind while formulating policies and enacting laws. These are the constitutional instructions or recommendations to the state in legislative, executive and administrative matters. 1. The directive principles are non-justiciable in nature, that is, they are not legally enforceable by the courts for their violation. Therefore, the government, central, state and local, cannot be compelled to implement them. Nevertheless, the Constitution, Article 37, itself says that these principles are fundamental in the governance of the country and it shall be the duty of the state to apply these principles in making laws. 2. Q. Which of the following provisions of the Constitution of India have a bearing on education? 2012. 1. Directive Principles of State Policy 2. Rural and Urban Local Bodies 3. 5th Schedule. 4. 6th Schedule. 5. 7th Schedule. Select the correct answer using the codes given below. 1 and 2 only, B, 3, 4 and 5 only, C, 1, 2 and 5 only, D, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 answer, D. Question 14. UPSC Indian POLITYDIRECTIV Principles of State Policy. Thank you and happy learning. UPSC Civil Services Examination. Prelim Special. Previous year questions Indian polity. Fundamental duties. Q. In the context of India, which one of the following is the correct relationship between rights and duties? 2017. Rights are correlative with duties. B. Rights are personal and hence independent of society and duties. C. Rights, not duties, are important for the advancement of the personality of the citizen. D. Duties, not rights, are important for the stability of the state. Answer A. Question 1. UPSC INDIAN Polity Fundamental. Duties. Question 1. Though the rights and duties of the citizens are correlative and inseparable, the original constitution contained only the fundamental rights and not the fundamental duties. In other words, the framers of the constitution did not feel it necessary to incorporate the fundamental duties of the citizens in the constitution. They incorporated the duties of the state in the constitution in the form of directive principles of state polity. 1. In 1976, the fundamental duties of citizens were added in the Constitution in the form of Article 51A, Part E by 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act. In 2002, one more fundamental duty was added. 2. The fundamental duties in the Indian Constitution are inspired by the Constitution of erstwhile USSR. Notably, none of the constitutions of major democratic countries like USA, Canada, France, Germany, Australia and so on specifically contain a list of duties of citizens. Japanese constitution is, perhaps, the only democratic constitution in the world which contains a list of duties of citizens. The socialist countries, on the contrary, gave equal importance to the fundamental rights and duties of their citizens. Hence, the Constitution of erstwhile USSR declared that the citizens' exercise of their rights and freedoms was inseparable from the performance of their duties and obligations. 3. Q. Which of the following statements are true of the fundamental duties of an Indian citizen? 2017. 1. A legislative process has been provided to enforce these duties. 2. They are correlative to legal duties. Select the correct answer using the code given below. 1 only. B. 2 only. C. Both 1 and 2. D. Neither 1 nor 2 answer, D. Question 2. UPSC INDIAN Polity Fundamental. Duties. Question 2. As of now there are 11 fundamental duties. Citizens are morally obligated by the Constitution to perform these duties. They serve as reminder to the citizens that while enjoying their rights, they should also be conscious of duties they owe to their country, their society and to their fellow citizens. 1. They serve as a source of inspiration for the citizens and promote a sense of discipline and commitment among them. They create a feeling that the citizens are not mere spectators but active participants in the realization of national goals. 2. However, like the directive principles, these are non-justiciable, without any legal sanction in case of their violation or non-compliance. They are only enforceable by law. Hence, the Parliament can provide for the imposition of appropriate penalty or punishment for failure to fulfill any of them. 3. Q. To uphold and protect the sovereignty, unity and integrity of India, is a provision within the 2015. A preamble of the Constitution. B. Directive principles of state policy. C. Fundamental rights. D. Fundamental duties answer, D. Question 3. UPSC INDIAN Polity Fundamental. Duties. To provide opportunities for education to his child or ward between the age of 6 and 14 years. This duty was added by the 86th Constitutional Amendment Act, 2002. Q. Which of the following are among the fundamental duties of citizens laid down in the Indian Constitution? 2012. 1. To preserve the rich heritage of our composite culture. 2. To protect the weaker sections from social injustice. 3. To develop the scientific temper and spirit of inquiry. 4. To strive towards excellence in all spheres of individual and collective activity. Select the correct answer using the codes given below. 1 and 2 only. B. 2 only. C. 1, 3 and 4 only. D. 1, 2, 3 and 4 answer, C. Question 4. UPSC INDIAN Polity Fundamental. Duties. Q. Under the Constitution of India, which one of the following is not a fundamental duty? 2011. To vote in public elections. B. To develop the scientific temper. C. To safeguard public property. D. To abide by the Constitution and respect its ideals. Answer, A. Question 5. UPSC INDIAN Polity Fundamental. Duties. Q. Consider the following statements. No one can be compelled to sing the national anthem since 1996. 1. It will be violative of the right to freedom of speech and expression. 2. It will be violative of the right to freedom of conscience, practice and propagation of religion. 3. There is no legal provision obliging anyone to sing the national anthem. 1 and 2 are correct. B. 2 and 3 are correct. C. 1, 2 and 3 are correct. D. None is correct. Answer, C. Question 6. UPSC INDIAN Polity Fundamental. Duties. Question 3. The Section 3 of the Prevention of Insults to National Honor Act, 1971 states that whoever intentionally prevents the singing of the Jana Gana Mana or cause disturbances to any assembly engaged in such singing shall be punished with imprisonment for a term, which may extend to 3 years, or with fine or with both. The Act does not compel anyone to sing the national anthem. 1. On August 11, 1986, the Supreme Court overruled the High Court of Kerala in the case of Bijo Emmanuel vs. State of Kerala and opined that the right to free speech and expression also includes the right to remain silent. The apex court stated that compelling each and every pupil to join in the singing of the national anthem despite his genuine conscientious religious objection would clearly contravene the rights guaranteed by Article 19(1) and Article 25(1) of the Indian Constitution. 2. Thank you and happy learning. UPSC Civil Services Examination. Prelim Special. Previous year questions Indian polity. Parliament Part 1. Topic-wise analysis of last 25 years polity questions. Chapter number of. Question asked from 1995 to 2018. Historical background of Indian Constitution. 5. Salient features of the Constitutions. 6. Preamble 4 Fundamental Rights 21. DPSP 18 Fundamental Duties 8. Parliament 37 Emergency Provisions 2. Amendments to Constitution and Political System Chapter number of question asked from 1995 to 2018. Systems of Government. 12. Center-State Relation. 5. Union Government 21 Ministries in. Departments. 6. State Government 18. Judiciary 19 Constitutional. Bodies. 11. Non-constitutional bodies. 4. Governance and Administration. Chapter number of. Question asked from 1995.